Good afternoon, everyone. During lunch, someone gave me the advice that if you're nervous about a presentation, you need to tell the audience you're nervous. I am nervous. So hopefully it'll go well from this point onwards. I hope so. My name is Bonolo Masango. I'm from the University of Johannesburg.
And my name is Nomalanga Mahlangu. I'm also from the University of Johannesburg.
And today we are going to talk about landscapes of memory. Our presentation is titled, Exploring the Significance of Landscapes of Memory for Local Communities in South Africa and Botswana. Memorial architecture has been an integral part of human civilization since its inception, manifesting in various built forms across different cultures and across different countries. Architecture has long since been the chosen medium to translate these memories into tangible forms. And these architectures are embedded with emotions and meaning in the physical landscape. We are, like we said, from the University of Johannesburg in the postgraduate program called the Graduate School of Architecture. And we run a research unit called Unit 15X. Our unit explores social justice in post-colonial African societies, specifically addressing the preservation of socio-cultural memories through architecture and landscape design. Our unit's core aim is to enable our students to see potential beyond their obvious assumptions of the status quo and to encourage them to find new ways of being in the world and new ways of making architecture. In 1994, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was set up to explore ways of addressing restitution and affording social justice to all who suffered loss through the creation of memorial sites that would memorialize the struggle. This included creation of physical spaces in the landscape, both in urban and rural areas, where people could gather, could remember, could grieve, and could commemorate and celebrate. This project, we started in 2023, the project on memory. We started in 2022 and 2023. We explored these concepts that raise questions about the complexity, performance, contextual response, and responsibility of memorials in South Africa and Botswana. Our aim was to ask the question, how can the classic genre of memorial architecture in public space be reinvigorated to have new relevance in the cultures that surround it? We started in 2022 by visiting various sites of post-apartheid memorial spaces in Gauteng to record what has been designed, how they function in their surrounding communities, and their durability as man-made objects. These are some of the sites we visited in Gauteng, and you may be familiar with Freedom Park that we visited earlier this week. One of the sites that we visited was the Sharpeville Memorial, where our students observed the commemoration of the Sharpeville massacre that happens every year on Human Rights Day. Sharpeville is a town that is located in Vereeniging, about 50 minutes away from Joburg. On the 21st of March in 1960, the Sharpeville massacre occurred when the Pan-Africanist Congress organized a peaceful protest in which Black Africans burned their passbooks, which restricted their movements. This event, which started as a peaceful protest, became violent when the police opened fire on the crowd and 69 people were killed. The Sharpeville Memorial Garden was constructed as a way to remember the events that occurred that day. And after we took our students to the site, some of our students observed how the local communities found their own way to memorialize the event that was outside of the memorial site, that disregarded the memorial site. One of our students' projects that I'm going to discuss today is a student named Edwin. Edwin investigated the commemorative rituals performed in the remembrance of the Sharpeville massacre. He was trying to uncover the political agendas behind the existing memorial with his project that he titled Exploring Ephemeral Memorial Landscapes. He observed how the community members of Sharpeville found their own way to commemorate, and he was inspired by the various rituals that occurred on site, and he became interested in the idea of an ephemeral memorial landscape. Edwin began by highlighting the role politics played in how this massacre was being commemorated. He observed how fragmented the commemorations are because you have two different political parties that commemorate on two different sites in the landscape on the same day. And while this is happening, the community is on the outskirts, and they're having their own form of commemoration that is outside what the political parties do. Edwin depicts in this image the different political parties by hand gestures to show how the commemorations are fragmented and how the community members are sidelined from the various memorial commemorations. With the ANC on the left-hand side with this symbol, and the PAC on the right-hand side with this symbol on two different areas on the site. By studying the rituals that occurred around the memorial, such as a ritual called upasa. The ritual called upasa, which is performed by the community members on the site to connect to their ancestors. Edwin began to use this ritual that he observed on site himself as a way of memorializing, but also as a tool of drawing to highlight the various sites of significance for the community of Sharpeville. So he started to use ritual in itself as a way to draw and as a way to design. I feel like fast forwarding. Okay, I'm just going to fast forward because of time. And then these are the maps that he created from that ritual. Another ritual that Edwin observed taking place on site, which speaks to the theme that we've been talking about this week of oral histories, is an everyday ritual called imbaula. For those of you who don't know, imbaula is a makeshift temporary stove for building fires outside. Sometimes it's used to cook, and sometimes it's used just as an outside fireplace to keep warm. And the interesting thing about the imbaula is that it's not what it is, but it is what happens around it. What happens around the imbaula is a storytelling ritual that has become a catalyst for the community to take ownership of their own histories. So while these political parties are having their own commemorations, the community members sit around imbaulas and tell stories of what happened that day as a way of keeping their own memories alive. Joel's project proposes a way of unifying this commemoration by incorporating this imbaula ritual to envision a new form of memorial and a new form of commemoration. He uses the imbaula not just as an artifact, but also as a design tool to unpack various narratives that he found on site in Sharpeville. Edwin's project suggests that memories and landscapes are ephemeral and are forever changing, and that the memorial landscape should also reflect that.
Can you just press for me?
Yes.
And then in 2023, we went to Botswana, 2023 being last year. We continued the theme of memory by visiting sites of memory in Gaborone, Botswana, in collaboration with the University of Botswana's Architecture Department. Botswana has a strong cultural and historical ties with South Africa. The unit latched onto the pivotal role that Botswana played in South Africa's quest for liberation. Our field trip to Botswana revealed that the exploration needed to be stretched beyond Gaborone to include a few more sites of memory in Botswana. We visited the Three Dikgosi Monument in Gaborone, the Fish Kiteng Monument in Pileng, the King's Homestead in Kanye, and Putatikowo Museum in Muchudi. These 4 sites presented very different models of memory preservation, from the monumental statues of the 3 Dikgosi monument to the cultural spaces such as the Khotla in Kganye. Upon our arrival in Botswana, a few of our students gravitated towards the 5.4-meter bronze sculptures that depicts the 3 Dikgosis. In direct translation, that means the tribal chiefs, which was Kgame the third, Sibele the first, and Batun the first. The 3 Dikgosis played an important role in Botswana's independence. In 1895, the 3 men traveled to Great Britain to ask Joseph Chamberlain and Queen Victoria to separate the Botswana Protectorate from Cecil Rhodes' British South Africa Company in Southern Rhodesia. So the following project locates itself at the 3 Dikgosi Monument, located in the central business district of Gaborone, Botswana. Jessica Ntale's project is a project we'll be presenting as our second project for today. Jessica took a particular interest in the site and its narrative, titling her project Bronze Heroes and Plastic Memories. Her project challenges the relevance of monuments and bronze statues, asking if these are culturally appropriate methods of memorialization in Gaborone, Botswana, and on the African context. She unpacked the principles of conventional monuments design, which include scale, orientation, proportion, and materiality. She went on to subvert these principles to create a basis for the design of her anti-monument. Jessica tested out the subversion of these principles on the 3 Dikgosi Monument site specifically. To the disappointment of the local community and the sculptors, her project uncovered how these statues and other statues across Africa were originally crafted in North Korea, where they were often created using a generic replicated template. The 3 Dikgosi statues were used on a template of the Northern Korean leaders, further even questioning their attire as shown by the tailored suits worn by the figures, instead of the traditional attire typically worn by the Tswana chiefs.
2063. 20 years growing. 10 large steps for every year. The same people who you used to look down upon come now to bury you as a feast. 20 years growing. This hill made by man. For no one can ignore you as they climb on top of you or go through you and come out different lads. 20 years growing, totally wiped from the landscape. Only the children of the past will remember your face as the children of the future dance atop your buried bronze
As a
plates.
unit, some of our methodologies we use is to encourage students to find and uncover ways to express themselves. And Jessica's use of poetry and sometimes surrealism is to express some of these ideas that she is interested in. Her project proposed controlled vandalism, that statues are separated and repositioned. They are also rotated to face south because during our site visit, we learned that in the Tswana culture, the chiefs must always face the community, which is something that the current statues were not doing. The statues are carefully submerged in the landscape over the years by the community. The project proposes for the community to make a procession slowly burying the 3 Dikgosi monument. This would take place annually during Independence Day that takes place on the 30th of September. The project, in doing so, they are actively participating in erasing them from the landscape and giving the people power to decide the future of these monuments. Jessica's project emphasizes the importance of community involvement in challenging monuments that do not reflect their cultural context, but rather than demolishing these monuments, she suggests designing around them and manipulating them to create a more meaningful space. Her project aims to challenge the authority of the 3 Dikgosi statues in order to create a more community-engaging memorial space. This is done through the design of a public independence garden that consists of an amphitheater, a performance stage, as well as a terraced feature mound where active subversion of these statues is carried out. She always used to end her presentation with words from James E. Young, stating that her project aims to not console but to provoke, not to remain fixed but to change, not to be everlasting but to disappear, not to be ignored by passerbyers but to demand interaction, not to remain pristine but to invite its own violation and desensification, not to accept graciously the burden of memory but to throw it back into the town's feet.
Just one more project that we're going to present today, but I'm not going to go deep into it because we have 5 minutes left. But I do believe that it deserves a special mention. Another project is a project by a student named Joel Banza. Joel Banza chose not to work in Botswana or South Africa. Joel decided to focus on memorializing mineral extraction sites in his home country of the Democratic Republic of Congo. In his project, he highlights the neglected aspect of memorialization, which is how do we memorialize something that is current and something that is still happening? Because usually with memorials, we memorialize a past event that has already happened. But with what's happening in Congo and the fact that it's continuing, he wanted to memorialize that as an act of protest and to raise awareness. In his project, he highlights the effect of the mining industry in the landscape of the town of Kolwezi in the DRC. What if memorials were not static but transient? What if the memorial could be moved around to different countries to raise awareness of the conflict that is currently happening? What if memorials were a form of protest? Joel's project proposes a design of a moving exhibition that would travel around the world because the issue of mineral exploitation is a global one. And I'll just stop there with Joel's project.
In closing, under the theme of Landscapes of Memory, students in Unit 15X were challenged existing memorials to respond in a culturally relevant manner to the surrounding communities. While existing memorials and monuments may be inaccurate sometimes and perpetuate a particular narrative, it is evident that communities still need them. Thus, the Students' Project suggests alternative ways of memorializing and visualizing the indigenous community's history through inclusive process of memorialization, where communities can preserve the cultural rituals and ensure the survival of indigenous cultures. Thank you very much.